Hello everyone. So I thought of doing an answer key for the exam that we've done. This would be very helpful for you in order to know where your mistakes were and why you got this mark. Also, it can help you to improve yourself in each criteria, and it helps you to see or to figure out how you can find the variables in a given question in any exam, not only this one. Okay, so before starting with reading the question given to you, let me start by a quick recall for everything we've done in Hooke's law so far. So the first experiment that we did was the basic one. It was using one spring and it was changing masses and measuring the extensibility of the spring. So the aim was to investigate how adding masses to a spring affects the extension. And the mass here represents the weight, of course, or the force. So when we plotted the graph, it was a force to extension graph where it shows a linear relationship between the force and the extension. It's a line that goes through the origin. Also, we said that the material and the thickness, both of them are factors that affect the extensibility of a spring. So the thicker the spring, the less it will extend. The thinner the spring, the more it can extend, as you can see here in this diagram. And when we want to plot this in the graph, we would see that a thick um, spring like this one would have a steeper slope, while a thin spring like this one will have a smaller slope. So the slope of the line that is steeper represents the one that is stiffer. Okay? And then this is the last thing that we took, that was the formula linking force, constant of the spring, and the extension together. If I want to rearrange the formula, first thing, it shows that force extension are directly proportional. Rearranging the formula, we say K is the force divided by the extension. So it shows that K and E are inversely proportional and not directly proportional. Okay. Starting with the question, I will skip all of this as it's all general information about springs and their behavior and all. Okay, now here I gave you the formula just in case you felt confused. This is where the actual question starts. An MYP student decided to make a further research about springs and their behavior. He took two identical springs. I'm gonna highlight anything that I feel it's useful. So two identical springs with the same K, 2 Newton per centimeter, and then he changed. So this word, it must grab your attention. He changed something, their arrangement. Now I won't understand from this word what is he changing actually, so I'm gonna just skip this, and try to figure it out later on. Okay, he changed the arrangement to examine how does changing the combination. Oh, so he's changing what? The combination of the springs in series and parallel, and then we're seeing how it's affecting the resultant springs constant. And then we have a diagram that explains everything. So we have two identical springs. We place them in parallel first, so side by side, and then we place them on top of each other next in series. And then we are adding mass, and it's shown here. Added then 500 gram masses to the spring until it reached a total of 3000. So this represents the mass that we're adding, and we're increasing the mass 500 gram each time until we reach 3000. So from only these things that I highlighted, I can get IV, dV, CV. Independent variable is what we're changing, and it will be the combination of the springs, series and parallel. Dependent variable is what is affected in my experiment. In this case, it's the resultant spring constant. And then control variable is what we're keeping the same. So I use the same spring, material. I used the same stiffness, so same K, and I added the same mass. So I'm actually using the same force applied on each system. What does that mean? If you're still confused about that, let me explain it for the very last time. Okay? When I say that the force is a control variable, it means that for each system at the same time, I'm adding 500 gram, and then using my measuring tool, okay, I'm doing what? I'm measuring the extension. And this is how it's something controlled, because the extension is the thing that is changing based on how much force, downward force, I'm applying. So if I increase the force here to 1000 gram, or the mass I mean, to 1000 gram, I'm gonna increase the mass here to 1000 gram as well. And then if I increase this to 1500, I'm gonna increase this one as well to 1500. So this is how I'm keeping the force or the mass represented by representing the force the same. Okay, and what I'm measuring is the extension, and then after finding the extension and having the force, I'm gonna find K, resultant K. What do I mean by resultant K? It means if I consider these two systems as one system, one spring, and if I consider these two systems as also one spring, what would K, the constant of the spring, be in compared to the single spring? That's the whole investigation. Okay, so because I know I talk a lot, I'm gonna skip everything. Oh, research question. If you did not get the things from this paragraph, yeah, then the research question would, or the hypothesis, both of them would like clearly give you the independent, dependent, and the control. Why? Because we already know that in a research question, the pattern is how does changing the, and then comes the IV, affect the, and then comes the DV. That's the pattern that you learned. Okay? So how does changing the combination of the two identical springs in series and parallel affect what the spring resultant constant Newton per centimeter? Okay? And then this one, when a force is acting upon them, that's my what? My control. Okay, so that's my independent. It's doesn't have any unit. It's discontinuous. Now, what's the range? It doesn't have a range. It has a class or a category. It lies in two categories, a series and a parallel. Now, how can I manipulate or change this during my investigation? A lot of you, or almost everyone, just said first start by combining them in series and then change the combination to parallel. But I'm still confused. What does series mean? What does parallel mean? If you want to be more specific, you should say placing the springs next to each other or side by side. So this sentence can help you to figure what does parallel mean. And placing them on top of each other, it can gives you what does the series mean. Okay? Now, for my dependent variable, that's my dependent variable, the resultant spring constant. The unit, it's a Newton per centimeter. How do I know? It's all there. Okay? It's all here. Spring resultant and Newton per centimeter. I am just copying. Now, is it continuous? Yes, it is. And now how can I find measure the dependent variable in my experiment? Almost everyone answered with the following thing. I'm gonna write it here. You said by using the formula K is F over E. That was the answer for almost everyone, and I don't know why. Like this formula, guys, okay, it has a name. It's called Hooke's law. So to be more specific and scientific, you don't say just using the formula. When the formula doesn't have a name, say by using the formula, but when the formula has a name or has a law related to it, then you need to state the law. So using Hooke's law. And as someone reading your report, I would be extremely confused on what does this mean. I have no idea what does that mean. So you need to say, first, measure or record or whatever you want, E, and you explain how you find LO and L, and then you do the subtraction thing. Then apply Hooke's law and apply this formula, and then yes, you got a good answer. By just saying using the formula, I'm sorry, you won't get the mark that you desire. So this is pretty much my answer. Measure the length of the combined springs before applying the force, then measure the new length of the springs after hanging the weights, and then find the extension by subtracting the new length from the original one. Applying Hooke's law, you'll find Kf over E. If you want to be even more specific, you can also say how you can find the force from the mass. Okay, I can add that. You say multiplying the mass by 10 or G, the gravity, you will find the force applied. Okay, last thing is let me just remove this, the control variable. These are the control variable. I'm not gonna go through them. You can pause the video and read them. Okay, the most important thing when I want to choose one and state and explain why it's important, you need to explain. So let's say I chose the first one because it affects the elasticity. If I chose the second one because it affects the extensibility. So you need to say why you're keeping this the same. Okay? Now, for this one, strand 4, you can see that these materials are pretty much the same materials as the one listed before and in the questions we've done before. It's a clamp, ruler, meter, mass holder, mass of 500 grams, 6 pieces of it, and pair of goggles. The only thing that changes, 2 springs, because again, we're combining 2 springs to get a system of series and a system of parallel. Okay, now these are the safety that if you memorize them, you just write them down and then you get the mark. Okay, before sharing my answer with you, I'd like to share some student answer with you. Okay, so I don't know this paper belongs to whom. I swear to God, I just randomly took papers and I took pictures of the answers. Just to show you that if it was your paper, you'd understand. If it's not, then I'm very sure that you have a very similar answer to these papers, okay? Again, the most important thing you need to know about how correcting and how any MYP teacher is correcting your criterion is we consider that we don't know anything. We're getting your report and we're following up your steps. How accurate will I be, or how well will I be guided from your report? That's the whole point. Okay, so organize everything and clean up workspace. Okay, hang parallel combination spring on stem. Okay, I'm gonna follow the things. So I hang 2 springs in parallel. Now add 500 gram weights once at a time. So I'm gonna add 500 gram as he said and record the extension. I'm gonna be stuck here. I don't know how to find the extension. I'm gonna be so confused and probably I'm gonna stop my investigation, go and ask someone who knows because I don't know how to record the extension. And then, okay, once I figured out how to record it, I came back, I figured it out. It's by using a ruler and I measured the extension. Cool. Now do this until 3000 gram added. What do you mean by this? I don't get you. It's not scientific at all. Okay, we all agree on this. But I consider that I understood and know add masses until it's 3000. So I'm gonna add mass until I reach 3000 grams. Perfect. Now set up series combination springs. Oh, so I'll remove everything and now I'll do it in a series way. Repeat step 3 on series combination. So I'm gonna add 500, record the extension, add more until I reach 3000. Suddenly, repeat step 3 and step 5 2 more times. So I'm gonna throw this, or like return back and back to my parallel and hang 500 and repeat it 2 more times to be more accurate, to complete 3 trials. And then return back to my series to do the same exact thing. You see how messy this thing is? You see, because I feel that when you write like your answer, you're not being logical, or you're not being scientific enough, actually. Okay, in this one, it's pretty much the same thing. The only thing that grabbed my attention is that they told me how to measure the extension, record the extension. Oh no, they told me the tool, but never told me how. So come and record the extension. I don't know how. Yes, and it's pretty much the same thing here. I don't know. I did not teach you this. I'm pretty sure. K is Fe. It's K is F over E. So if you did not study this formula, I don't know what else you studied before coming to the exam, actually. Anyway, so that was the best one, or one of the best. You'll see how if you compare these two, you will see what do I mean exactly. Okay, that's the whole purpose of this video. So gather all the apparatus. Okay, attach the ruler to the clamp stand. Now I get it. Attach the spring to each other and then attach one side to the clamp stand in series. Okay, record the length LO. Okay, add 500 gram, record L. Okay, calculate the extension E. L minus LO. Okay, repeat steps for 2 more times. So they didn't tell me to arrange my apparatus now in series or in parallel in the other combination, and then return back to do it 2 more times. No, they were more logical. They told me to repeat it once I already have it in this way, and repeat it 2 more times to get accurate values. Okay, now repeat steps by changing the value of the masses and adding it until 3000. Cool, and then repeat everything, but now in a parallel way. Now this is on a 7 to 8. This is on, I don't know. I think a 4, like a 4. Yeah, maximum 5. It doesn't deserve 5 as well. But in all cases, anyway. Okay, so back to my way. This is my way. I'm not gonna read it. If you want, you can pause the video and go through it. Now, let's go to criterion C.